Hi everybody, this is Guns for Days here, and today I'm gonna be making a history video, about the Mexican-American War, because I want to honor the St. Patrick Battalion, since it's St. Patrick's Day, so I thought, why not?
My name is John Riley. I'll have your ear only a while.
April 25th, 1846. That was when the Mexican-American War began, after Americans spilled blood on disputed territory. Back in 1805, in Clifton, Ireland, a man named John Patrick O'Reilly was born. A man who was Irish, who would leave Ireland and go to the US as an Irish immigrant. When he arrived, he joined the US Army around 1845. Then fast forward to 1846, after the annexation of Texas in 1845. Before the war started, John Riley and some Irish soldiers fled the US Army and left to Mexico. Then joined the Mexican Army, including many others. Almost all of the ones who deserted the US Army and left to Mexico were immigrants who were treated poorly, including the Irish, who were Catholic. They were treated harshly since the United States were Protestant and did not like Catholics, and it reminded them on how the British treated them back home in Ireland. Mexico, with almost all their people being Catholic, gave the immigrants a reason to desert the US Army and join Mexico's army. The Mexican army even paid better too. If you know about the American Civil War, then you will be surprised that the generals in the Mexican-American War were Robert E. Lee, George McGhee, George Pickett, George B. McClellan, Stonewall Jackson, Ulysses S. Grant, William T. Sherman. They were involved, including Zachary Taylor and Winfield Scott. In the Mexican-American War, the United States Army was made up of volunteers, a lot of them. And the president at the time of the United States was James K. Polk. And the president of Mexico was Antonio de Padua Maria Severino Lopez de Santa Anna y Perez de Lebrón. Or in short, Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna, or if you want to make it more shorter, Santa Anna for more shorter, obviously. And yes, that was his full name. His full name was actually Antonio de Padua Maria Severino Lopez de Santa Anna y Perez de Lebrón. Now, fast forward to May 8th, 1846, the Battle of Palo Altos, the first battle of the Mexican-American War. It happened in Brownsville, Texas, but back then it was called Palo Altos. And the battle happened on disputed territory, but at the time was Mexican territory. This battle would prove the talents of the immigrants who joined the Mexican Army after deserting the United States Army. But with the United States Army having modern weaponry and the Mexicans having weapons that are 100 years old, the result was an American victory. The next day, Arista, the Mexican general at the Battle of Palo Altos, would try again at the Battle of Saca de la Palma on May 9th, 1846, but would fail, and they were forced to retreat to the city of Monterrey, which the immigrants, including John Riley, formed the St. Patrick Battalion, made up of Irish immigrants, the ones who deserted the United States Army. But they weren't the only immigrants in the St. Patrick Battalion. Also included German immigrants and Swedish immigrants, even some slaves who escaped the United States to Mexico and joined the army. The St. Patrick Battalion would prove as the hard-fighting battalion, most hardest fighting battalion in the Mexican army. And now we fast forward to the Battle of Monterrey, September 21 to 24th, 1846. General Taylor continued his slow march into Mexico. The Battle of Monterrey lasted 3 days. 3 days of brutal fighting. The military numbers weren't large since the northern territory of Mexico was hot and rocky, a place where you can't put a large number of men on. Zachary Taylor numbered the forces 6,220, and Pedro numbered the forces 7,303. At Monterrey, the Mexican army got a hold of modern weaponry, and the St. Patrick's Battalion were in charge of artillery. Even though they were pushing the city walls, the St. Patrick's Battalion did continue fighting on. But at the third day, for no explanation, when the Mexican army were at a point of winning, Pedro decided to throw in the towel and surrender, making a small armistice with Zachary Taylor, and the Mexican army were forced to abandon all near equipment at Monterrey. But some did not like it and decided to stay and continue fighting. But that resulted in Zachary Taylor bombarding the city, which is why in history books in the United States they say they won a battle, but in reality they technically just walked in, because Americans always want to take credit for everything. On the territory to the far west of Mexico, there weren't any major battles, which is why we don't talk about them that much, because technically it was just very open area that wasn't populated. After the horrible defeat of Monterrey, the Mexican army regrouped and organized at San Luis Potosí, where they met with Santa Anna, the president of Mexico and the commander of the Mexican army, technically general of the Mexican army, which during his presidency he did fight in the battles. Battle of Buena Vista, February 22nd to the 23rd, 1847. One of the most brutal battles of the war was the Battle of Buena Vista, where Santa Anna and Zachary Taylor went up against each other. Santa Anna's forces made heavy losses to Taylor's army, even managing to capture some of Taylor's armory. At a certain point, a U.S. soldier came up to Taylor and said, "This battle lost," and which Taylor responded, "I know." Taylor's army was at a breaking point due to diseases, and many of his men being killed in the Battle of Buena Vista were really showing that Mexico were close to victory. But out of no explanation, and one of the most weirdest parts of history and unexplainable parts of history, Santa Anna decided to retreat with no reason, even to this day, with no clear explanation. No one really knows why Santa Anna decided to retreat where Mexican forces were close to victory. Due to the bravery that the St. Patrick's Battalion showed, they were assigned to infantry by orders of Santa Anna himself. The Siege of Veracruz, March 9th to the 29th, 1847. Winfield Scott opened a second front and laid siege to the city of Veracruz, which, after many days, fell. The Battle of Cerro Gordo, April 17th to the 18th. U.S. troops now took Veracruz, and the Mexican military prepared their defenses as U.S. troops advanced with determination. But when the U.S. Army close to retreat, a group of U.S. troops surprised the Mexican army and forced a panic, causing panic, forcing them to retreat, making another defeat for the country. The news breaks out fast and with sadness. Now Mexico exposed to invasion. During the surprise attack, Santa Anna was eating in his carriage and surprised by Illinois infantry, and himself, including his men, dropped everything and ran. Santa Anna left his prosthetic leg behind, which the Illinois regiment decided to take with them back home, and now sits in the Illinois Military Museum. Santa Anna originally lost his leg in 1838 when a cannon hit him during the Pastry War, or the First French Intervention, which is why when the French invades Mexico in 1861, that's why they call it the Second French Intervention. The last battle that the St. Patrick Battalion fought in was the Battle of Churubusco. The Battle of Churubusco, August 20, 1848. The battalion and the Mexican army were reduced to the outskirts of the capital, now prepared themselves for the worst to come. They said at the point where the capital was at the breaking point, the battalion fought like never before at the Battle of Churubusco. When the cannons ran out of ammunition, they used rocks as cannonballs. One U.S. cannon hit the ammunition and gunpowder room and blew up. But when the white flag was raised, Sergeant Patrick Downton, a soldier in the St. Patrick's Battalion, put that white flag down and continued fighting. But sadly, the battle was lost. When U.S. entered, they captured Pedro Anaya and told him to turn in his ammunition and gunpowder, which Pedro responded, "If we had it, you wouldn't be here." After the Battle of Churubusco, many of the St. Patrick's Battalion troops were captured, including John O'Reilly, and those who weren't captured left and regrouped with the remaining Mexican army. The battalion were punished badly, even though they were considered Mexican citizens in Mexico. The United States did not see it that way. Those who deserted before the war began were whipped 50 times, then branded with the letter D under the eye, close enough to where it wouldn't damage their eyesight. Those who deserted during the war were executed with no trial. Many of them tried to get out of it by saying they were drunk when they enlisted, but that did not work. They still ended up being executed. But John O'Reilly was lucky enough since he deserted before the war began. Battle of Molino del Rey, September 8th, 1847. The Mexican defenders put up a very violent fight, but in the end, they were overrun by U.S. troops. Battle of Chapultepec, September 12th to the 13th, 1847. The last major front in between Mexico City. The ones from the St. Patrick's Battalion were executed during the battle, right after the U.S. flag rose up. John O'Reilly was dragged out to witness the deaths of his men. He yelled out, "Fuego!" and his men responded, "Live long Mexico, live long Ireland, live long liberty." Then they were hanged. When Santa Anna abandoned Chapultepec, 6 teenage boys who were part of the Mexican army decided to stay and take on the U.S. troops going into Chapultepec Castle. They all died on September the 13th, 1847, in Mexico City. They were called El Niño Héroes, or the Kid Heroes in English. Agustin Melgar died at age 18. Francisco Marquez died at age 13. Fernando Montes de Oca died at age 18. Vicente Suarez died at age 14. Juan de la Barrera died at age 19. Juan Escutia died at age 20. Battle for Mexico City, September the 8th to September the 15th. Technically, it's from September 14th to the 15th. Mexican army fought bravely, but in the end, they fell. The US took Mexico's northern lands. Now it's mostly forgotten in the US history books, but in Mexico, it remains a scar in their history. If you like this video, stay tuned to watch any of my Dragon Ball Z ripoff videos or any of my future history videos. The next one I'll be making will be about when France invaded Mexico and fought a 6-year-long war against them during the American Civil War.